thrilled to see so many people here for our first effort. I think the reason for launching this conversation series, which will take place on an occasional basis, and we'll also from the next one be broadcasting live via live streaming on our website, is to create a platform here in the city where people can engage in mindful conversations and debates about things which are pertinent to real life, topical issues, which is really important to us. The last thing I have to do, obviously, is welcome and introduce both Fiona Forde and Ronnie Kasrils this evening to the Fugard. I'm absolutely thrilled that they've both made themselves available to be here tonight. So if you put your hands together for Fiona and Ronnie.
Thanks so much. Thanks for the kind words, and thanks for the turnout. It's a wonderful initiative of Fugard Theatre, and we really hope this is going to become something that's a part of Cape Town, these sessions. Very, very important, the discourse.
Yeah, I remember, if we go back to that, 2 years ago when we were all trying to get our heads around Julius Malema, and he was forever depicted in his designer clothes, and he had that little pinky, a gold ring with a diamond in it, and he had this massive Breitling watch. And the Breitling was always there, and it became part of the narrative, I think, around Julius Malema. When people would describe him, they would talk about the watch, and they'd attached a figure to it, and the figure was always 250,000 rand for this watch, even though that was not real, that was not true. But that's what was in my mind. I think the take that I had on that was from the very best-selling book, The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo. And in my mind, it was the man with the Breitling watch, and it stood for a lot. And it stood for his crass wealth. It stood for, no disrespect to Ronnie, a lot of new ANC politicians and what they stand for and how they wear their wealth on their sleeves. But when I went to Breitling to get permission to use their brand in the title of the book, they turned it down. They didn't want me to use it. So I went to Plan B, and that was an Inconvenient Youth. And it did the very same thing, I think, as the preferred title, because I think he's inconvenient on lots of different layers. And I think he's inconvenient to the ANC because I think Julius is the one who's putting the spotlight on their kind of politics, and their kind of politics are very dark and very dirty. I think he's inconvenient for all of us, how he unsettles the democracy, and people have challenged me on that to say, does he really unsettle the democracy? And I think he does, because I don't think the democracy is grounded yet. And it's quite easy to unsettle it. It's only 17 years old. And yeah, just a walking Inconvenient Youth, that's what he was.
The thing that we need to demand in civil society is the openness, is the question of an end to this police brutality that's taking place, the end to corruption, which actually compared to other countries is quite minimal. And it's a country, it is. No, it's minimal compared. It's dreadful. I loathe it. But if you look at the kind of corruption, it's still something that gets dealt with, and it's open to the press. And people, hold on. Where do you see ministers being taken to task? Where do you see the police commissioner sentenced? It doesn't happen everywhere, and it doesn't happen in many places. So
Ronnie, they're not taken to task.
I'll give you a chance. And I'll end on that. There is that particular element. Okay. Having said that, let's just end by saying to Tracy, who has asked a question about the farms that are left without productivity and workers. You want to say anything about that? I'll be booed again if I enter the fray.
When he started to talk at that time about what he was going to do from here on in and started to roll out his own message, think back about what he was saying then. The ANC were in trouble. They had let him go way too long, and now they're left with a very difficult problem. We're all following a disciplinary hearing that's been actually generating headlines all over the world for a 30-year-old youth league leader. There's something very, very wrong in that. So while the youth were dormant under Mbeki, at least Mbeki kept control on the likes of Fikile and Balula. Fikile could have gone like a sprung as well. Leadership is lacking in this ANC, and that's why Julius came up And it's taking a long time to put him down now because it's too late. They've let the problem go on for too long. And I do believe that if there's any political opportunist out there who's watching Julius Malema today, I know if I was a political opportunist, I would do it. I would look at his successes and learn from his mistakes. I think the politics of Julius Malema, I think this genie is out of the bottle. And the politics of Malema is here to stay. South Africa is not functioning. You know what I mean? It's a very dysfunctional country when you look at the socioeconomic divide. And I think you're very lucky that you got away with one awful incident in 2008, which was called so-called xenophobia. You know, it's about raw anger beneath the surface, about people appealing for help. They're not being heard. So if somebody can get into that space and really hear, but then craft credible solutions, you're onto something. But this is not the man to do it.